She was just another cleaner at his million-dollar wedding. But when his pregnant ex-wife dropped the mop and showed ultrasound photos of twins, the bride demanded answers. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, subscribe to the channel, and let's get started. Amanda Reynolds adjusted the vase of fresh daisies on the dining table with trembling hands. She glanced at her watch. Richard would be home in less than an hour. The small Chicago apartment, which he constantly referred to as temporary housing until our real home in Manhattan, was immaculate. She had spent the entire day cleaning, cooking his favorite meal, and rehearsing exactly how she would tell him the news. Her hand instinctively moved to her still flat stomach. The pregnancy test, the third she had taken just to be certain, lay hidden in her pocket. 2 blue lines. Unmistakable. Unexpected, but not unwelcome. At least, not to her. Amanda walked to the window overlooking the Chicago skyline. The January wind whipped against the glass, making the old building creak. Snow was beginning to fall, adding to the foot already accumulated on the ground. She pressed her forehead against the cold pane, remembering the night she had met Richard Blackwell just 18 months ago. It had been at a charity fundraiser for literacy programs, a cause close to her heart as a literature teacher. Amanda had been volunteering, setting up the book displays when Richard entered the room. He stood out immediately in his perfectly tailored suit, commanding attention with his confident stride and charismatic smile. Within minutes, he had charmed everyone around him, speaking passionately about market predictions and investment strategies. "The future belongs to those brave enough to seize it," he had told a captivated audience of potential donors. His eyes had met hers across the room, and something electric passed between them. Later that night, champagne glass in hand, he had approached her. "You're different from everyone else here," he had said. "You're genuine." By the end of the evening, he had secured her phone number and a promise for dinner the following week. 3 months later, he proposed. 3 months after that, they were married in a small ceremony that Richard insisted was just a prelude to a proper celebration once we're established in New York. "Together we'll conquer the world," he had whispered on their wedding night. Amanda sighed and moved away from the window, walking to the bedroom where she slid open her dresser drawer. Beneath neatly folded sweaters lay her literature degree from Northwestern, now gathering dust. She had resigned from her teaching position at a respected private school to support Richard's career move to Chicago, expecting it to be temporary. He had been newly hired by a prestigious Wall Street firm that wanted him to prove himself in their Midwest office before bringing him to headquarters. She had found part-time teaching positions at community colleges, piecing together an income while Richard established his name in the market. He was climbing the corporate ladder with almost predatory determination, working late nights and weekends, constantly networking and positioning himself for the next opportunity. Amanda closed the drawer. She knew Richard had mentioned several times that children were not in the 5-year plan. But plans changed, didn't they? Surely when faced with the reality, the actual creation of their child growing inside her, he would adjust his timeline. They were already married, financially stable. This might not be the perfect moment in his career trajectory, but when was life ever perfect? The sound of keys in the door jolted her from her thoughts. "Richard!" she called, moving quickly to the entryway. "You're home early." Richard Blackwell stepped into the apartment, snow dusting the shoulders of his charcoal overcoat. He placed his Italian leather briefcase carefully on the side table, a contrast to the simple furnishings Amanda had selected to make their temporary home comfortable. "Meeting ended sooner than expected," he said, not looking at her as he removed his coat and scarf. "The Moscow deal is progressing faster than anticipated." He hadn't kissed her hello as he used to in the early days of their marriage. Amanda pushed aside the observation and smiled. "I made your favorite, beef Wellington, and I opened that Bordeaux you've been saving." Richard finally looked at her, his expression unreadable. "Not hungry. I had something at the office." Amanda felt her carefully constructed plan beginning to unravel. "Oh, well, Maybe just a glass of wine then? I need to talk to you about something important. Richard loosened his Hermes tie, a Christmas gift from Amanda that had cost nearly half her monthly teaching income. Can it wait? I have numbers to review before tomorrow's call. Actually, no, Amanda said, gathering her courage. It can't wait. Something in her tone must have registered because Richard finally gave her his full attention. He studied her face, eyes narrowing slightly. What is it? Amanda took a deep breath. I'm pregnant. The silence that followed was more frigid than the Chicago wind outside. Richard stood perfectly still, only his eyes moving as they swept over her face, then down to her stomach, then back to her eyes. His expression didn't change, but something behind his eyes shifted, hardened. He walked past her into the living room, methodically placing his briefcase on the coffee table and adjusting his tie with precision. How far along? He asked, his voice clinical. About 6 weeks, Amanda said, following him. I know we said we'd wait, but this isn't going to work for me, Richard interrupted, his tone eerily calm. A child would ruin my career trajectory, and you clearly haven't understood what it means to be married to someone like me. Amanda felt as though she'd been slapped. What do you mean, someone like you? Someone with ambition. Someone with a plan. Richard turned to face her fully. I've been offered the promotion in New York. I'm leaving in 3 days. Amanda's heart leaped momentarily. That's wonderful news. When do we move? I can start looking for teaching positions and… You're not coming with me, Richard stated flatly. The world seemed to tilt beneath Amanda's feet. What? This promotion doesn't include family baggage, Richard explained with the same detachment he used when discussing underperforming stocks. My attorney has already prepared the divorce papers. They're in my briefcase. Amanda felt her knees weaken. She gripped the back of a dining chair for support. Divorce? Richard, I don't understand. We're having a baby. No, you're having a baby, he corrected. I'm building an empire. He opened his briefcase and removed a manila envelope, placing it on the dining table next to the vase of daisies she had so carefully arranged. The apartment is in my name. You'll need to vacate within 72 hours. Tears filled Amanda's eyes as the magnitude of what was happening began to register. Richard, please. We can work this out. Maybe the timing isn't ideal, but… You're not enough, Amanda, Richard said, cutting her off again. You never were. I needed someone who understood ambition, not a mediocre teacher dreaming of a suburban life with a white picket fence. You're too ordinary for the future I'm building. Each word struck like a physical blow. Amanda felt her chest constricting, making it difficult to breathe. What about the baby? She managed to ask, her voice barely above a whisper. Richard reached into his pocket and placed a one-way ticket to Boston on the table, along with an envelope. Do whatever you want with that. It's not my problem. He straightened his already perfect tie. There's $2,000 in the envelope. More than generous, considering. Amanda stared at the ticket and envelope in disbelief. $2,000? For what? To disappear? To give you a fresh start somewhere else, Richard said. Boston has good schools. You might find work there. This is our child, Amanda said, her shock giving way to anger. Your son or daughter? Richard's expression remained impassive. You'll never be anything without me, Amanda, and honestly, I doubt you can survive on your own, but I can't carry your weight while I'm building my empire. The next hours passed in a nightmarish blur. Richard packed methodically, selecting only the items he deemed worthy of his new life in New York. Designer suits, expensive watches, the first edition books Amanda had given him as wedding gifts. Their pages never opened. Amanda sat on the edge of the bed they had shared, watching as he erased every trace of their life together. She felt hollowed out, as if Richard had reached inside her chest and removed something vital. Where am I supposed to go? She asked as the reality of her situation sank in. No job, pregnant, with only 72 hours to vacate the apartment and $2,000 to her name. "Not my concern," Richard replied without looking at her. "You should have thought about that before getting pregnant." 3 days later, Amanda stood at O'Hare International Airport with 2 suitcases containing her entire life. Through the large windows, she watched Richard's plane to New York take off, tears streaming down her face. In her pocket, the $2,000 felt like blood money. Next to it was a small card her mother had given her before she died of cancer 2 years earlier. Amanda pulled it out, reading the familiar words through blurred vision. "Strength isn't in never falling, but in always rising." Her mother couldn't have known how desperately Amanda would need those words one day. The first months in Boston were brutal. Visibly pregnant and emotionally devastated, Amanda rented a tiny room in Dorchester, a working-class neighborhood far from the academic circles she had once navigated comfortably. During the day, she taught as a substitute in public schools, taking whatever assignments were available. At night, she cleaned office buildings downtown, hiding her growing belly beneath oversized uniform shirts. Every penny she earned went into a fund she labeled "Future" in her carefully maintained budget notebook. It wasn't just for practical necessities, it was an act of defiance against Richard's prediction of her failure. When Sophia was born in August of 2005, Amanda faced the delivery room alone. The contractions had started during her evening cleaning shift, forcing her to take a taxi to the hospital with her cleaning uniform still on. "Where's the father?" the intake nurse had asked, clipboard in hand. Amanda had hesitated only briefly before answering with the first of many versions of the same lie. He passed away before knowing he was going to be a father. It was easier than admitting the truth, that her child's father had considered her insufficient to be part of his life. It was a kindness to herself, to Sophia, and ironically, to Richard's memory and their daughter's future understanding. The most humiliating moment came when Sophia was just 2 months old. Despite working double shifts and cutting expenses to the bone, Amanda fell behind on rent. On a rainy October night, she found herself sitting in a women's shelter, cradling Sophia's sleeping form, surrounded by other women whose stories of abandonment and hardship echoed her own. Looking down at her daughter's peaceful face, something crystallized within Amanda. A resolve harder than diamond, more enduring than grief. "I swear, Sophia," she whispered, "that one day he'll choke on every word he said. I'll transform each rejection into strength, each insult into determination. And when I'm done, the world will know your worth, and mine." The next morning, Amanda used her last financial reserve to print business cards at a copy shop near the shelter. Mason Cleaning Services, cleaning that transforms. Her maiden name would be her new beginning. As she held the simple white cards in her hand, Amanda couldn't possibly imagine that 15 years later, she would be commanding a $200 million business empire, while Richard Blackwell would be begging for her attention. As she held the simple white cards in her hand, Amanda couldn't possibly imagine that 15 years later, she would be commanding a $200 million business empire, while Richard Blackwell would be begging for her attention. Boston welcomed Amanda with bitter January winds that cut through her inadequate Chicago coat. The city, with its historic architecture and prestigious universities, had once represented opportunity and intellectual pursuit in her mind. Now it was simply a place far enough from Chicago to start over, chosen because the one-way ticket Richard had tossed at her didn't offer alternatives. The taxi from Logan Airport took her to Dorchester, a working-class neighborhood far from the gleaming towers of downtown or the elegant brownstones of Back Bay. The 3-story walk-up looked dingy even in the pale winter sunlight, paint peeling from the window frames, concrete steps cracked from years of harsh New England winters. $26, the taxi driver announced, eyeing her 2 worn suitcases dubiously. Amanda handed over $30. A foolish gratuity considering her circumstances, but old habits died hard. The driver didn't offer to help with her bags as she struggled up the steps, one hand protectively over her still flat stomach. The landlord, a heavy-set woman with suspicious eyes, looked Amanda up and down as she filled out the rental application. "Job?" she asked curtly. "I'm a teacher," Amanda answered. "I'll be applying for positions this week." The woman's eyebrows rose. "No current employment? And security deposit?" Amanda swallowed her pride. "I can pay 3 months in advance, in cash." The mention of cash softened the landlord's expression slightly. Still, she studied Amanda's left hand, noting the pale band of skin where her wedding ring had been until yesterday. "No funny business here," the woman warned. "No parties, no men coming and going. I run a respectable building." "It's just me," Amanda assured her, fighting back tears. "Just me." The room, it couldn't properly be called an apartment, was barely 200 square feet. A twin bed with a sagging mattress occupied one corner. A hot plate, mini refrigerator, and sink comprised the kitchen. The bathroom was down the hall, shared with 3 other tenants. Amanda sat on the edge of the bed after the landlord left, finally allowing herself to weep. Her hands trembled as they cradled her stomach. "It's just us now," she whispered, "but we'll be okay, I promise." Morning sickness struck with ruthless intensity the following day. Amanda knelt on the cold tile floor of the shared bathroom, retching violently while trying to keep quiet. A line of impatient tenants had formed in the hallway by the time she emerged, pale and shaking. "Some of us have jobs to get to," muttered a middle-aged man in a security guard uniform. Amanda nodded apologetically, hurrying back to her room where she changed into her most professional-looking outfit, a navy skirt suit that had once fit perfectly but now hung loosely on her frame. 6 weeks of pregnancy and stress had already stripped pounds from her slender build. The Boston Public School Administrative Office was bustling with activity. Amanda waited patiently, resume in hand, watching the clock tick away precious minutes of the day. "Ms. Reynolds?" called a harried-looking woman. "We have several substitute positions available, but nothing permanent until fall. You'd need Massachusetts certification for full-time consideration." Amanda nodded, disappointment settling in her chest. "I'll take whatever substitute work is available, and I'll start the certification process immediately." The woman eyed Amanda's left hand, noting the same thing the landlord had. "Just so you know, health insurance doesn't kick in for substitutes. Not until you're permanent." The implication was clear. Pregnancy without insurance was a financial disaster in the making. "I understand," Amanda replied, keeping her voice steady. "When can I start?" That evening, Amanda walked through downtown Boston, entering every office building that didn't require key card access. At the reception desk of a mid-sized accounting firm, she inquired hesitantly, "Do you have an opening for evening cleaning staff?" The receptionist looked surprised. "With your outfit, I thought you were here for an interview." Amanda forced a smile. "Just trying to make ends meet until teaching positions open up." By the end of the week, she had secured 3 evening cleaning positions at different downtown offices and was on the substitute teacher call list for 5 schools. Each morning, she awoke at 5, rushing to the bathroom before the morning queue formed, hiding her retching behind running water. By 6:30, she was dressed and waiting for potential substitute assignments. On days when schools didn't call, she walked the city, applying for any position that might accommodate her growing pregnancy. Evenings were spent on her hands and knees, scrubbing toilets and emptying trash bins in silent offices, the fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows across empty cubicles. After finishing around midnight, she would return to her room, count the day's earnings, and meticulously record every penny in a notebook labeled Future. $212 this week, she whispered to her stomach one Friday night. Not enough, but a start. As her first trimester progressed, hiding her condition became increasingly difficult. During a substitute assignment at a middle school in South Boston, a particularly observant 7th grader raised his hand in the middle of a lesson. "Ms. Reynolds, are you having a baby? My mom's stomach got big like that when she was pregnant with my sister." 28 pairs of eyes turned to examine her midsection, where her blouse strained slightly against her growing bump. "Yes, Tommy, I am," Amanda answered, deciding that honesty was simpler than denial. Now, who can tell me the capital of Argentina? In the teacher's lounge at lunch, whispers followed her. A veteran teacher approached with a sympathetic smile. "First baby? Where's your husband stationed?" The assumption that only a military deployment would explain a pregnant woman working 2 jobs alone was both kind and cutting. "He's not in the picture," Amanda replied simply, ending the conversation. By her 5th month, even her evening cleaning supervisors were noticing. The manager at the accounting firm pulled her aside one night. "We have liability concerns," he said, not meeting her eyes. "If you fell or strained yourself—" "I'm very careful," Amanda assured him. "I need this job." He shifted uncomfortably. "We'll keep you on until you're showing too much for clients who work late. Then we'll have to reevaluate." Amanda nodded, understanding the unspoken deadline. She had perhaps 6 more weeks of income from this position. One evening, while cleaning the executive floor of a financial services company, Amanda found herself staring at the Wall Street Journal left open on a desk. The business section featured a small photo of Richard Blackwell alongside an article about emerging talents in investment banking. His familiar face, confident and calculating, stared up at her. "Rising star Richard Blackwell joins Morgan Stanley's elite advisory team," the caption read. Amanda's hand trembled as she traced his image. In the 4 months since he'd abandoned her, she'd received no communication, no calls, no emails, not even divorce papers, despite his claims that they had been prepared. "I hope you're enjoying your empire," she whispered to the photo, tears blurring her vision. Suddenly, a wave of nausea overcame her. She barely reached the executive washroom before vomiting violently into the toilet. When she emerged from the stall, a late-working executive stood at the sink, watching her with concern. "Are you all right? Should I call someone?" Amanda straightened her cleaning uniform, wiping her mouth with a paper towel. "I'm fine. Thank you. Just pregnancy sickness." The woman's eyes softened. "I remember those days. When are you due?" "August," Amanda replied, moving to gather her cleaning supplies. "You shouldn't be working this late in your condition. Doesn't your husband worry?" The kindness in the stranger's voice nearly broke Amanda's carefully maintained composure. "There's no husband," she admitted. "Just me." The executive studied her for a long moment, then reached into her purse and withdrew a business card. "My sister runs a support group for single mothers at Massachusetts General. They have resources, connections for better jobs. Call her." Amanda accepted the card gratefully, tucking it into her pocket. Later that night, she added it to a growing collection of lifelines, business cards from understanding strangers, pamphlets from community support centers, flyers for discounted prenatal care clinics. As August approached, Boston sweltered under a brutal heat wave. Amanda's room, with its single window and no air conditioning, became nearly uninhabitable. Her cleaning jobs had dwindled to 1, and substitute positions had ended with the school year. She supplemented her income by tutoring summer school students and proofreading dissertations for international graduate students. The contractions began during an evening cleaning shift at her last remaining job, a small law office that had kept her on out of the senior partner's sympathy. Amanda had been emptying trash bins when the first sharp pain sliced through her abdomen. "Not now," she whispered, gripping the edge of a desk. "Not yet." But her body had other plans. By the time she reached the lobby, the contractions were coming regularly. The security guard called a taxi, and Amanda directed the driver to Boston Medical Center's emergency entrance. "First baby?" the driver asked, eyeing her through the rearview mirror. Amanda nodded, clutching her cleaning uniform as another contraction hit. "Father meeting you there?" "He's not involved," Amanda managed between controlled breaths. The driver nodded knowingly. "My sister raised 3 on her own. Toughest woman I know." At the hospital intake desk, the nurse's question was inevitable. "Emergency contact? Father of the baby?" Amanda hesitated only briefly. He passed away before knowing he was going to be a father. The lie slipped out easily, far easier than explaining abandonment. It offered dignity where the truth offered only pity or judgment. In the months since arriving in Boston, she had learned that a tragic widowhood garnered support, while a husband who left his pregnant wife invited uncomfortable questions about what she might have done to deserve it. Sophia Mason Reynolds entered the world after 14 hours of labor, screaming with healthy indignation at the harsh lights and cold air of the delivery room. When the nurse placed the tiny, red-faced infant on Amanda's chest, something fierce and protective bloomed inside her. "Hello, little fighter," she whispered, counting perfect fingers and toes. "It's just you and me against the world." The hospital social worker visited the next morning, clipboard in hand, expression professionally concerned. "Ms. Reynolds, I understand you're recently widowed and new to Boston. What support system do you have in place for when you take the baby home?" Amanda met the woman's gaze steadily. "I have savings. I have jobs lined up for fall. I've researched affordable childcare options." The social worker made notes, clearly unconvinced. "And housing? Secure?" Amanda lied. Her tiny room violated multiple tenant agreements by adding an infant. The most humiliating moment came 2 months later. Despite working whenever Sophia slept, despite cutting every possible expense, Amanda fell behind on rent. The eviction notice appeared on her door on a rainy October evening, the red lettering stark against the white paper. "Vacate within 48 hours." That night, with Sophia swaddled against her chest and a backpack containing their essential belongings, Amanda walked through driving rain to the women's shelter 6 blocks away. The intake counselor, a tired-looking woman with kind eyes, processed them efficiently. "We can offer you a bed for up to 3 weeks while you find alternative arrangements," she explained, leading Amanda to a dormitory-style room with 8 beds, each occupied by a woman with her own story of crisis. Sitting on the edge of the narrow cot, listening to the rain pound against the windows and the soft breathing of her daughter, Amanda felt a moment of crushing despair. Then, looking down at Sophia's peaceful face, something crystallized inside her. A resolve harder than diamond, more enduring than grief. "I swear, Sophia," she whispered, "that one day he'll choke on every word he said. I'll transform each rejection into strength, each insult into determination. And when I'm done, the world will know your worth and mine." The next morning, while Sophia slept in a donated bassinet, Amanda met with the shelter's employment counselor. Instead of requesting job listings, she asked for directions to the nearest copy shop. Using $50 from her dwindling emergency fund, money earmarked for diapers and formula, Amanda designed and printed 200 business cards. Mason Cleaning Services, cleaning that transforms. Amanda Mason, owner, phone number. Her maiden name would be her new beginning, a reclaiming of identity and purpose. The counselor frowned when Amanda showed her the cards. "Starting a business is risky, especially in your situation. We have reliable employers who hire our residents." "With all due respect," Amanda replied, steel in her voice, "I didn't come to Boston to work for others my entire life. This is an investment in our future." She didn't know yet, but that modest business card improvisationally created in a moment of crisis would be the first step toward building an empire that would one day purchase the company of the man who had discarded her as insufficient. The modest business card was just the beginning. Amanda sat in the corner of the women's shelter common room, Sophia swaddled against her chest, a notebook open on the small table before her. The fresh stack of Mason Cleaning Services cards beside her represented more than just a business venture. They were a declaration of independence, a refusal to be defined by Richard's abandonment. First steps: secure clients, establish reliable childcare, find affordable housing, she murmured, pen moving methodically across the page. The magnitude of these tasks would have paralyzed many, but Amanda approached them with the same analytical precision she once applied to literary analysis. Dawn found her already awake, Sophia nursing quietly as Amanda made her first calls of the day to apartment buildings, small businesses, and office managers throughout Boston. By mid-morning, she had scheduled 3 cleaning estimates and arranged for another shelter resident to watch Sophia during her appointments. "You're really doing this," remarked Tracy, the shelter's employment counselor, watching Amanda don her most professional-looking outfit, a navy blazer that hung loosely on her post-pregnancy frame. "I don't have the luxury of waiting for someone to offer me a better life," Amanda replied, adjusting Sophia in the improvised baby carrier fashioned from a donated scarf. Her first potential client was the manager of a small dental office in Brookline. The woman frowned when Amanda arrived with Sophia. "You bring your baby to business meetings?" Amanda didn't flinch. "My childcare fell through today, but I keep my commitments. I can assure you that when I'm cleaning, I have arrangements for my daughter." The woman's expression softened slightly. "My sister had twins last year. I understand the juggling act." By the end of the day, Amanda had secured 1 weekly cleaning contract for the dental office, barely enough to cover formula and diapers, but a start. Over the next week, she added 2 more small businesses to her client list, cleaning in the evenings while a teenage daughter of another shelter resident watched Sophia for a nominal fee. Each night, Amanda returned to the shelter exhausted, hands raw from cleaning products, back aching from hours of physical labor. Yet, as she looked at Sophia sleeping peacefully in the donated bassinet, a fierce determination burned within her. This child would never know want or abandonment. This child would have opportunities Amanda herself had never imagined. After 3 weeks, the shelter's maximum stay period ended. Amanda had saved just enough for the security deposit on a tiny studio apartment in Dorchester, a ground-floor unit with water damage in one corner and questionable wiring, but it was theirs. The first night in their new home, Amanda placed Sophia in a second-hand crib acquired from a charity donation center. The apartment was nearly empty otherwise. A mattress on the floor, a folding table, and a single chair constituted their furniture. "This is temporary," she promised her daughter, who gazed up with eyes that sometimes reminded Amanda painfully of Richard. "We're going to build something extraordinary." Days blurred into nights as Amanda established a punishing routine. She carried Sophia in a front pack to early morning cleanings of small offices, the baby sleeping against her chest while Amanda scrubbed toilets and mopped floors. During nap time, she made calls to potential clients, refining her pitch with each conversation. Evenings were spent cleaning again, now with Sophia in an improvised playpen made from a laundry basket lined with blankets. Winter settled over Boston with brutal intensity. Their apartment's heating system functioned sporadically at best. Amanda wore layers of clothing to bed, wrapping Sophia in every blanket they owned, their breath visible in the frigid air. "We need more clients," Amanda murmured one evening, reviewing her meticulously kept accounts book. 4 months into her venture, Mason Cleaning Services had 6 regular clients, enough to cover rent and basic necessities, but leaving no margin for emergencies or growth. The breaking point came when Sophia developed a high fever in February. Without health insurance, Amanda faced an impossible choice: emergency room visit or rent money. She chose her daughter's health, spending the rent funds on medical care and antibiotics. That night, with Sophia's fever finally breaking, Amanda cleaned the bathroom of a law office with her sick daughter strapped to her chest, applying cool compresses between tasks. Tears mingled with cleaning solution as she scrubbed the floor, her body aching with exhaustion. "You'll never be anything without me," Richard's voice echoed in her memory. "I doubt you can survive on your own." Amanda scrubbed harder, channeling her rage and determination into each movement. "Watch me," she whispered to the empty room. The following day, unable to pay rent, Amanda negotiated with her landlord, cleaning services for the building's common areas in exchange for a 2-week extension. It was the first of many instances where she would transform a crisis into an opportunity. By Sophia's first birthday in August, Mason Cleaning Services had expanded to 12 clients, including several law offices and medical practices. Amanda had hired her first part-time employee, another single mother from the shelter who needed flexible work hours. "Happy birthday, my brave girl," Amanda whispered, presenting Sophia with a small cupcake purchased from a bakery, a luxury they rarely afforded. Their apartment, while still sparsely furnished, now contained bookshelves filled with children's books rescued from thrift stores and yard sales. During the day, while cleaning offices, Amanda kept Sophia occupied with educational toys and constant conversation, narrating her actions and explaining concepts far beyond typical infant understanding. By 18 months, Sophia was speaking in complete sentences, her vocabulary remarkable for a child her age. "Mama working," Sophia would announce proudly when they entered a client's office, clutching her own miniature cleaning cloth. Amanda established a disciplined routine of self-education. Each night after Sophia fell asleep, she studied business management books borrowed from the public library. The dining table, a yard sale find, became command central, covered with spreadsheets calculating profit margins, marketing strategies, and expansion plans. She enrolled in a free night course on entrepreneurship offered by a community center, sleeping just 4 hours per night to accommodate the additional commitment. The instructor, a retired business professor, recognized her potential immediately. "You have natural business instincts," he told her after reviewing her meticulous business plan. "But you need to think bigger." "Bigger requires capital," Amanda replied pragmatically, "and banks don't lend to single mothers with cleaning businesses and no collateral." "Then create value no one else offers," he challenged. "Find a niche that commands premium prices." The opportunity presented itself unexpectedly on a Friday evening in April. Amanda had been hired for a one-time cleaning job at BioGentech, a small biotechnology startup, following their office celebration of a successful funding round. While methodically removing champagne stains from laboratory-adjacent carpeting, stains other cleaners had deemed impossible to remove, Amanda noticed Dr. Susan Chen, the operations manager, watching her work. "You're still here at 9 o'clock?" Dr. Chen asked, surprised to find anyone still in the office. "Difficult stains require time and attention," Amanda replied, demonstrating how she was testing different solutions on inconspicuous areas before applying them to visible sections. "Your previous cleaners used products that could potentially contaminate sensitive equipment if particles became airborne." Dr. Chen raised her eyebrows, impressed. "Most cleaners don't consider cross-contamination issues." "I research every client's specific needs," Amanda explained, continuing her methodical work. "A biotech firm has different requirements than a law office." The conversation extended as Amanda completed her work, with Dr. Chen growing increasingly impressed by Amanda's attention to detail and understanding of their specialized environment. Sophia slept peacefully in her carrier, waking only once for a bottle that Amanda had prepared in advance. "Our current cleaning service is constantly triggering alarms by unplugging essential equipment or using incompatible chemicals near sensitive instruments," Dr. Chen confided. "We need someone who understands our work." 3 days later, Amanda found herself in BioGentech's conference room, presenting a comprehensive cleaning protocol specifically designed for their laboratory-adjacent spaces. Her proposal included specialized training for all cleaning staff, customized cleaning solutions that wouldn't interfere with research, and accountability measures to ensure consistent quality. "We'd like to offer you an exclusive contract," Dr. Chen announced after conferring with the company's executives. "Triple your usual rate but with correspondingly high expectations." The opportunity was transformative, but required immediate expansion. Amanda needed equipment, supplies, and most importantly, staff who could maintain her exacting standards. With the contract as leverage, she approached several banks for loans. Each rejection followed the same pattern: insufficient credit history, no collateral, business too new, too risky. In desperation, Amanda signed with a high-interest lender, mortgaging her future on the belief that she could make this opportunity succeed. The terms were predatory: interest rates that would make financial advisors wince. But the alternative was losing the contract that could establish her company's reputation. "Is everything okay, Mama?" Sophia asked that night, observing her mother's intense expression as she reviewed the loan documents. "Yes, sweetheart," Amanda replied, smoothing her daughter's hair. "Mama's taking a big step to build our future." With loan funds secured, Amanda returned to the women's shelter, not as a resident this time, but as an employer. She interviewed women she had met during her stay, focusing on those with children who needed the flexibility and understanding a single mother would provide. "I need reliable, detail-oriented team members," she explained to a group of 4 women gathered in the shelter's common room. "The hours are unconventional, but the pay is fair, and I understand when childcare falls through or kids get sick." Her first team consisted of 4 single mothers, each with her own story of abandonment or escape from untenable situations. Amanda trained them rigorously, emphasizing the specialized nature of cleaning biotechnology spaces and the importance of confidentiality regarding research they might glimpse. The night before their first scheduled cleaning at Biogentech, Amanda gathered her team at her apartment for final preparations. Sophia moved among the women, offering crayon drawings and practicing the new words she learned daily. "Tomorrow we prove that we deserve this opportunity," Amanda told her team as they reviewed protocols one final time, not just to Biogentech, but to ourselves. That first month tested every ounce of Amanda's determination. She worked alongside her team every night, demonstrating techniques, correcting mistakes, encouraging excellence. During the day, she managed scheduling, payroll, and client communications while Sophia played nearby, absorbing her mother's work ethic through osmosis. When the first month's contract was successfully completed, with Dr. Chen expressing enthusiastic satisfaction, Amanda treated her team and their children to inexpensive ice cream cones at a shop near the shelter. "To Mason Cleaning Services," she toasted, raising her cone, "and to new beginnings." 2 years after Richard's abandonment, Amanda signed the lease on a small basement office in a commercial building near Dorchester. The space was modest, just enough room for a desk, filing cabinet, and small meeting area, but it represented a critical milestone. Mason Cleaning Services was no longer operated from her apartment floor. It had a commercial address, a dedicated phone line, and a growing reputation for specialized cleaning services. As she placed her business cards in a holder on her new desk, Amanda couldn't have imagined that in less than a decade, the Mason Enterprises would occupy 3 floors of one of Boston's most prestigious buildings. As she placed her business cards in a holder on her new desk, Amanda couldn't have imagined that in less than a decade, the Mason Enterprises would occupy 3 floors of one of Boston's most prestigious buildings. 5 years had passed since that bitter January day when Richard had cast her aside like an unwanted accessory. Amanda sat in her modest office reviewing the month's financial reports with critical eyes. Mason Cleaning Services had grown steadily, now employing 15 people, all women, most of them single mothers. Their reputation for reliability and attention to detail had spread through Boston's professional community, creating a stable, if not spectacular, business. "Mama, I finished my book. Can I have another?" Sophia, now 5 years old, looked up from her corner of the office where a small play area had been established. Even at this young age, she had already progressed to reading material meant for children twice her age. "Of course, sweetheart. Choose anything from the blue shelf." Amanda smiled at her daughter, whose intelligence continued to astonish everyone she encountered. Sophia had taught herself to read at 3, picking up words from the business books Amanda studied each night. By 4, she was correcting spelling errors in the company's promotional materials. Amanda returned to her spreadsheets, frowning slightly. The numbers told a clear story. Mason Cleaning Services was plateauing. The growth curve had flattened over the past 2 quarters. They were surviving, but the ambitious 5-year plan she had created required more substantial revenue increases. "We need to differentiate," she murmured, tapping her pen against the desk. "Higher margins, specialized services that justify premium rates." The ringing phone interrupted her thoughts. It was Marcus Jefferson, the IT manager from Apex Solutions, one of their newer clients. "Ms. Mason, we have a situation," he began, frustration evident in his voice. "Your team cleaned our server room last night." Amanda tensed. "Was there a problem with the service?" "They unplugged our backup servers to connect their vacuum cleaner. We lost 4 hours of data syncing. My team has been restoring systems since dawn." Amanda closed her eyes briefly, absorbing the blow. "Mr. Jefferson, I deeply apologize. This should never have happened." "No, it shouldn't have," he agreed curtly. "Look, I know you run a good operation overall, but tech environments require specialized knowledge. My boss is pushing to switch to a service that understands IT infrastructure." After assuring him of immediate corrective measures and offering a month of complimentary service, Amanda hung up and sat motionless, mind racing. This wasn't the first such incident. Last month, a financial services client had complained about cleaning products leaving residue on sensitive scanner equipment. Before that, a research lab had reported concerns about cross-contamination. "Specialized knowledge," she repeated softly, a plan beginning to form. That evening, after putting Sophia to bed in their small but comfortable apartment, a significant upgrade from their first studio, Amanda drove to the Boston Public Library. Instead of heading to the business section as usual, she turned toward technology and science. For 3 hours, she pored over manuals on data center operations, laboratory protocols, and technical cleaning requirements for specialized environments. She filled a notebook with detailed observations, technical terminology, and potential service adaptations. The following day, Amanda visited the MIT bookstore, investing in expensive technical manuals that the library didn't carry. Her evenings transformed into intensive self-education sessions, studying everything from airflow management in server rooms to particulate control in clean rooms. 2 weeks later, she enrolled in a night course on network security fundamentals at a local community college. Walking into the classroom, Amanda immediately felt out of place. The room was filled predominantly with young men in tech company t-shirts, all at least a decade younger than her 33 years. "Are you sure you're in the right classroom, ma'am?" asked the instructor, a bearded man in his 40s who didn't bother hiding his skepticism. Amanda straightened her posture. "Network Security Fundamentals, Section 201. Yes, I'm in the right place." She took a seat in the front row, ignoring the curious glances from the other students. When the instructor began discussing basic server configurations, Amanda took meticulous notes, underlining terminology she would research further at home. The juggling act became increasingly complex. Mornings were dedicated to managing current contracts and staff. Afternoons involved caring for Sophia, whose kindergarten ended at 2 o'clock. Evenings meant either attending classes or cleaning particularly sensitive client locations personally to understand their specific needs. Late nights were reserved for studying, often until 2 or 3 in the morning, leaving Amanda with barely 4 hours of sleep. "You look tired, Mama," Sophia observed one morning, her perceptive eyes missing nothing. "I'm learning new things to help our business grow," Amanda explained, pouring herself a third cup of coffee. "Like when I learned multiplication last week?" Amanda smiled, amazed once again by her daughter's accelerated development. "Exactly like that. Learning helps us become better." The catalyst for transformation came unexpectedly. Amanda was browsing the Boston Globe over a rare lunch break when a headline caught her attention. "Critical research data compromised at MIT. Cleaning crew blamed for cross-contamination." The article detailed how an external cleaning service had used inappropriate chemicals near sensitive equipment, potentially compromising months of research data. The incident had triggered discussions about specialized maintenance protocols for research environments. Amanda immediately recognized the opportunity. She spent the weekend developing a comprehensive proposal, outlining a new division of Mason Cleaning Services specifically trained for high-technology environments. She researched certification programs, specialized equipment, and proprietary cleaning methodologies that wouldn't interfere with sensitive technology. Using her entire personal savings, she produced professional presentation materials and a detailed training manual for what she now called Mason Tech Clean Division. The investment represented a significant risk. If this failed, she wouldn't make next month's rent. Through persistent calls and leveraging a second-degree connection through a current client, Amanda secured a meeting with MIT's facilities management team. The night before the presentation, anxiety kept her awake as she rehearsed her pitch repeatedly. "You can do this," she told her reflection in the bathroom mirror. "You've already survived the worst. This is just another step forward." The MIT administration building was imposingly academic, its corridors lined with photographs of Nobel laureates and groundbreaking research achievements. Amanda, dressed in her one good suit, waited in a conference room surrounded by men in expensive business attire, the only woman present besides the department secretary. When her turn came to present, Amanda stood with carefully cultivated confidence. "Gentlemen, the recent incident with your current cleaning service highlights a critical gap in the maintenance industry, a gap that Mason Cleaning Services is uniquely positioned to fill." For 20 minutes, she outlined her vision: a specialized team trained in laboratory protocols, understanding of sensitive equipment requirements, and customized cleaning methodologies for research environments. She detailed certification plans, specialized equipment investments, and a proprietary tracking system to ensure accountability. "Our staff will be trained to recognize different types of research equipment, understand basic protocols, and know exactly which cleaning agents are compatible with which environments," she explained, distributing detailed specification sheets. The facilities director leaned forward, skeptical but intrigued. "This sounds promising in theory, Ms. Mason, but can you demonstrate practical application? Our environments require specialized knowledge." "I'd be happy to provide a practical demonstration," Amanda replied without hesitation. "Allow me to clean your server room while explaining the protocols we would implement." To the surprise of the committee, Amanda opened her briefcase and removed gloves, specialized cleaning tools, and a testing kit for surface residue. For the next 15 minutes, she cleaned a section of the server room, narrating each step and explaining why certain products and techniques were appropriate for sensitive electronics. "Notice how this microfiber blend removes dust without generating static electricity," she demonstrated. "And our cleaning solution is non-conductive and evaporates without residue, eliminating any risk to circuit boards." The room fell silent as the committee members exchanged impressed glances. The director cleared his throat. "Ms. Mason, I believe we can arrange a trial period for 3 of our lower sensitivity laboratories." 3 days later, Amanda signed MIT's contract, the most significant in her company's history. The terms were exacting, but the compensation reflected the specialized nature of the service. More importantly, securing MIT as a client would open doors throughout Boston's extensive research and technology community. That evening, Amanda gathered her employees in their small office. "We're transitioning," she announced. "Mason Cleaning Services is becoming Mason Enterprises, with specialized divisions for different client categories." She outlined an intensive training program, increased wages reflecting specialized skills, and a new organizational structure. Several employees looked apprehensive at the changes ahead. "This means more technical training?" asked Maria, who had been with the company since the beginning. "Yes, and certification programs that will make your skills more valuable," Amanda confirmed. "Every person in this room will have opportunities to advance as we grow." The first night at MIT was tense. Amanda personally supervised the team, checking each procedure against the protocols she had established. Sophia sat quietly in the facilities management office, drawing complex geometric patterns that had recently captured her interest. "This is a big client for your mom," the night supervisor explained to Sophia. "I know," Sophia replied matter-of-factly. "It's a pivotal opportunity for market differentiation and premium service positioning." The supervisor blinked in surprise at the 5-year-old's vocabulary before turning back to his monitors. By dawn, the team had completed their first shift without incident. Amanda was exhausted but exhilarated. As they were packing up their equipment, Professor James Whitman, a renowned physicist whose laboratory they had cleaned, approached. "Ms. Mason, I wanted to thank you personally." Amanda straightened her tired shoulders. "Was everything satisfactory, Professor?" "More than satisfactory," he replied, genuine appreciation in his voice. "For the first time in 5 years, I didn't have to reorganize my laboratory after cleaning. Your team understood the importance of not disturbing calibrated equipment. That's unprecedented." Word spread quickly through MIT's research community. Within a month, Amanda's team was responsible for 3 additional laboratories. By the second month, Harvard's biology department had requested a proposal for similar services. The specialized approach Amanda had developed was filling a critical need in Boston's extensive research community. 6 months after securing the MIT contract, Mason Enterprises had doubled its staff and tripled its revenue. Amanda expanded the office, established a formal training center for employees, and hired her first operations manager to handle day-to-day logistics while she focused on business development. The Boston Globe business section ran a small profile piece titled "Local Company Revolutionizes Cleaning Services for Technology Institutions," featuring a photograph of Amanda in a lab coat inspecting a cleaning procedure at a prominent research facility. She carefully clipped the article and added it to her growing portfolio of achievements, never imagining that in just 3 years, the Boston Globe would feature her on the cover as the Queen of Corporate Cleaning, a nickname that Richard Blackwell would see with shock over his Manhattan breakfast table. The small newspaper feature was just the beginning. In the years between 2010 and 2015, Mason Enterprises underwent a transformation as dramatic as Amanda's own journey from abandoned wife to respected CEO. The MIT contract had opened doors throughout Boston's academic corridor, and Amanda methodically converted each opportunity into a stepping stone toward her vision. "Ms. Mason, Harvard Medical School is requesting a proposal for their new research wing," announced Denise, Amanda's recently hired administrative assistant, placing a stack of messages on the desk. Amanda glanced up from the quarterly projections she was analyzing. "Schedule a site survey for Thursday, and contact our equipment supplier about those specialized HEPA filtration systems we discussed." The basement office that had once seemed so impressive now burst at the seams with activity. Staff members shared desks in rotating shifts, filing cabinets lined every wall, and the small conference area doubled as a training center and break room. Success had brought growing pains that demanded attention. On a cool September morning in 2011, Amanda stood before her assembled team, now 23 strong. "It's time for the next phase," she announced, unveiling architectural renderings of their new headquarters, an entire floor in a commercial building near Boston Harbor. Mason Enterprises is expanding beyond cleaning services into comprehensive facility management. The move represented a massive financial commitment, but Amanda had become adept at calculated risks. Each expansion was meticulously planned, each service addition researched exhaustively before implementation. The new space would accommodate specialized training facilities, administrative offices, and a research laboratory for developing proprietary cleaning protocols. "Are we really going to have real offices?" whispered Maria to Elena, both original team members who had started when the company operated from Amanda's apartment. "With windows?" Amanda overheard and smiled. "Windows, ergonomic chairs, and a proper break room with more than one microwave." The celebration that night was modest but meaningful. A catered dinner for all employees and their children in the empty shell of their future headquarters. Sophia, now 7 years old, moved among the families distributing homemade cupcakes from a recipe she had perfected through methodical experimentation. "My mom built all this," she told anyone who would listen, her precocious articulation drawing smiles from the adults. "From just $2,000 and determination." Amanda watched her daughter with a mixture of pride and wistfulness. Sophia had Richard's analytical mind and penetrating gaze, but her fierce determination was purely her own. She had never asked about her father's absence, accepting Amanda's vague explanations with the pragmatism that characterized her approach to life. The expansion into the new headquarters coincided with Amanda's decision to pursue formal education in security protocols and facility management. 3 nights a week, after tucking Sophia into bed with a stack of books, Amanda attended advanced certification courses at Northeastern University. "You're the only student who consistently submits assignments early," remarked her corporate security professor, reviewing her detailed analysis of vulnerability points in standard cleaning operations. "I have strong motivation," Amanda replied simply, gathering her materials. She had exactly 47 minutes to return home before the neighborhood teenager babysitting Sophia needed to leave for her own night class. The sacrifices were substantial but calculated. Each certification, each new skill added to Amanda's growing arsenal of expertise, translating directly into service offerings that competitors couldn't match. Mason Enterprises evolved from a cleaning service into a comprehensive solution for environments with specialized requirements. By 2013, the transformation was complete. The company website no longer mentioned cleaning services, but instead highlighted integrated facility management, secure environment maintenance, and contamination control solutions. Their client list had expanded to include 15 major research institutions, medical facilities, and technology companies throughout Greater Boston. Commonwealth Bank, which had rejected Amanda's first loan application years earlier, now courted her business aggressively. The loan officer who had once dismissed her without a second glance now arrived at her office with premium financing packages and invitations to exclusive networking events. "Ms. Mason, we're extremely impressed with your company's growth trajectory," he explained, sliding a prospectus across her desk. "We'd like to offer you a preferential line of credit to support your continued expansion." Amanda reviewed the documents with the same methodical attention she applied to every aspect of her business. "The terms seem reasonable, but I'll have my financial team analyze them before making a decision." The banker blinked, clearly unaccustomed to such measured responses to generous offers. "Of course. We're eager to build a long-term relationship with Mason Enterprises." "As I recall," Amanda replied with a slight smile, "you weren't interested in a relationship when I was a single mother with a cleaning business and no collateral." The banker had the grace to look embarrassed. "The banking landscape has evolved significantly since then." "So have I," Amanda responded, rising to indicate the meeting was concluded. That evening, Sophia sat at the dining table in their new apartment, a spacious 3-bedroom in a secure building with a doorman, focused intently on an advanced calculus workbook. At 10 years old, she had already skipped 2 grades and was taking weekend enrichment courses at MIT's program for mathematically gifted children. "Mom, can I ask you something important?" Sophia said, looking up from a particularly complex equation. Amanda set aside the contract she was reviewing. "Of course, sweetheart." "Jessica in my weekend program says everyone has a dad somewhere. Where's mine?" The question Amanda had been anticipating for years had finally arrived. She had prepared multiple versions of the answer, ranging from age-appropriate simplifications to the complete, brutal truth. What emerged was something in between. "Your father wasn't ready to be a parent," Amanda explained carefully. "He had different priorities and made a choice to pursue his career instead of family." Sophia considered this with the same analytical approach she applied to mathematical problems. "Did he ever try to find us, to see if he made a mistake?" Amanda shook her head. "No, he didn't." Statistical analysis suggests that 87% of absent fathers attempt contact eventually, Sophia noted, citing a fact she had likely read in one of the sociology books she borrowed from the library. Was there something specifically wrong with us? The innocent question struck Amanda like a physical blow. "Absolutely not," she said firmly. "The failure was entirely his, not ours. Some people aren't capable of recognizing value when it's right in front of them. Sophia nodded, seemingly satisfied with this explanation. Like when investors failed to recognize the potential of Apple in the late 90s. Amanda smiled despite the heaviness in her chest. Something like that. The conversation reinforced Amanda's determination to provide Sophia with every opportunity to develop her extraordinary potential. When her daughter won the state science fair with a project on optimizing cleaning chemical formulations for laboratory environments, Amanda wasn't surprised, but she was unprepared for the attention it brought. "Your daughter has remarkable analytical abilities," Sophia's science teacher commented during a parent-teacher conference. "Her approach to problem-solving is years beyond her peers. Has she been tested for the National Gifted programs?" Within months, Sophia was accepted into accelerated learning programs and invited to specialized summer workshops. Her bedroom walls became covered with certificates of achievement and mathematical formulas she found particularly elegant. Amanda accommodated each new opportunity, rearranging her schedule and business commitments to ensure Sophia's development remained the priority it had always been. In the spring of 2014, Mason Enterprises reached another milestone: expansion beyond Massachusetts. A prestigious financial services firm in New York City contacted Amanda after a board member who also served on Harvard's Administrative Council recommended her company's specialized services. "Wall Street has unique security and discretion requirements," the operations director explained during their initial meeting. "Our current maintenance contractors don't understand the sensitivity of our environment." Amanda recognized the opening not just for geographical expansion but for an entirely new service division. Over the next 6 months, she developed specialized protocols for financial institutions, focusing on document security, electronic surveillance considerations, and confidentiality requirements. The New York contract necessitated Amanda's first executive hire from outside the company, a former FBI cybersecurity specialist who could oversee the sensitive operations of what became Mason Financial Services Division. Similar opportunities soon followed in Washington, D.C., where government contractors sought the same specialized expertise. By the end of 2014, Amanda found herself traveling frequently between Boston, New York, and Washington, overseeing the establishment of regional offices and training specialized teams. Each expansion was meticulously planned and executed with the same attention to detail that had characterized her approach from the beginning. During a rare weekend without business obligations, Amanda took Sophia to a Boston Symphony Orchestra performance. As they waited for the music to begin, Amanda noticed several business leaders acknowledging her with respectful nods. A decade earlier, these same individuals might have overlooked the young single mother struggling to build a business from nothing. "Ms. Mason," whispered the CEO of a prominent Boston investment firm, leaning across the aisle. "I've been meaning to call you. We're renovating our secure trading floor and could use your expertise." "Have your operations director contact my office on Monday," Amanda replied with practiced professionalism. "We'll schedule a consultation." Sophia observed the interaction with interest. "Everyone knows you now," she commented as the lights dimmed. "Not everyone," Amanda replied, thinking of one particular person who remained unaware of her transformation. The thought of Richard had become less frequent over the years, the acute pain of his betrayal gradually replaced by focused determination. Still, Amanda maintained a digital archive tracking his career through business publications and social media. Richard Blackwell had indeed built his empire, becoming CEO of Blackwell Industries, a media and technology conglomerate frequently featured in business journals. One morning in early 2015, Amanda found a Fortune magazine on her desk, placed there by her assistant with a yellow sticky note marking a specific page. The headline read, "Media mogul Richard Blackwell announces engagement to Catherine Vanderbilt," accompanied by a photograph of Richard with his arm around a willowy blonde woman from one of America's most established families. Amanda studied the image dispassionately. Richard looked successful, expensively tailored suit, confident smile, the embodiment of the corporate titan he had always aspired to become. Yet something in his eyes suggested a hardness that hadn't been there 15 years earlier, the cost, perhaps, of the empire he had prioritized above all else. "Congratulations," Amanda murmured, closing the magazine and returning to the quarterly projections that demanded her attention. That evening, while Amanda worked late at the office, Sophia made a decision that would eventually alter the course of all their lives. Rummaging through her mother's oldest possessions, a box of memorabilia kept in the back of a closet, she found a hairbrush with a few strands of hair caught in the bristles. The brush was different from any her mother currently used, masculine in design with the initials RB engraved on the handle. With the methodical approach that characterized all her actions, Sophia collected the hair samples and carefully sealed them in a plastic bag. 3 days later, she submitted them along with her own DNA sample to a genetic testing service, paying for the analysis with money earned from mathematics tutoring. The results, arriving 8 weeks later, confirmed what Sophia had already deduced. The owner of the hairbrush was her biological father, with a paternity match of 97%. She filed the results away in her meticulously organized desk, information to be used when the optimal moment presented itself. As 2015 drew to a close, Mason Enterprises celebrated its 10th anniversary with the acquisition of a prestigious new headquarters, 3 full floors in a gleaming glass tower overlooking Boston Harbor. The company now employed over 1,200 people across 15 states, with specialized divisions for research institutions, financial services, healthcare facilities, and government contractors. At the ribbon-cutting ceremony, Amanda stood before her assembled executives, the original team members positioned prominently in the front row. 10 years ago, I made a promise that we would transform an industry. Today, we've exceeded even my ambitious vision. Later that evening, alone in her spacious new office with its panoramic view of the harbor, Amanda reviewed a monitor displaying the company's national operations, blinking lights representing teams working across the country, from Boston to San Diego. Each light represented not just a contract, but a life changed, a family supported, an opportunity created. As she inaugurated the new headquarters with its harbor view, Amanda didn't know that one day Richard Blackwell would pass through those same doors, not as a guest, but as a subordinate, begging for the chance to prove his worth. As she inaugurated the new headquarters with its harbor view, Amanda couldn't know that one day Richard Blackwell would pass through those same doors, not as a guest, but as a subordinate, begging for the chance to prove his worth. The gold medal gleamed under the auditorium lights as Sophia Mason stood on the podium, her posture perfect, her expression composed despite the thunderous applause surrounding her. At 14, she had just become the youngest winner of the National Mathematics Olympiad in its 37-year history, defeating competitors from elite private schools and specialized academies across the country. Amanda sat in the third row, maintaining her professional composure even as pride threatened to overwhelm her. She watched as the president of the Mathematical Association of America placed the medal around Sophia's neck, leaning forward to whisper something that made her daughter's face light up with a rare, unguarded smile. "Your daughter's performance was extraordinary," whispered Dr. Patel, Sophia's academic advisor, seated beside Amanda. "The final problem has stumped professional mathematicians. She solved it in 17 minutes. Amanda nodded, unable to trust her voice. Her mind flashed inevitably to the cost of this moment, the countless nights working multiple jobs, the meals skipped to afford educational materials, the years of sacrifice that had created the foundation for Sophia's success. Worth every second, every hardship. When Sophia stepped down from the podium, her eyes immediately sought Amanda's in the crowd. Their silent exchange contained volumes: pride, gratitude, shared triumph over circumstances that should have broken them. Later, as they made their way through the crowd of well-wishers, Amanda overheard snippets of conversation that followed in their wake. Genetic gift, obviously. Wonder if her father was a mathematician. Heard she was accepted to college courses already. Mason? Is that the same Mason as Mason Enterprises? This last question caused several heads to turn, connections forming as people recognized Amanda from recent business publications. The link between the corporate success story and the mathematical prodigy created a fresh buzz of speculation. In the limousine returning to their Boston home, a spacious condominium in an exclusive building overlooking the Charles River, Sophia finally relaxed, removing the medal and studying it with clinical detachment. The competition was statistically predictable, she noted, tracing the embossed figures on the medal's surface. 67% of competitors used standard approaches to the third problem. I identified a more efficient solution path. Amanda smiled at her daughter's characteristic analysis. And how do you feel about winning? Sophia considered the question with the same seriousness she applied to mathematical theorems. Validated, but also aware that the achievement is temporary. Next year's competition will have different parameters. I'm incredibly proud of you, Amanda said simply. Sophia's expression softened slightly. I know, Mom. Everything I accomplish is because of what you built for us. Back in her office the following morning, Amanda found a stack of congratulatory messages waiting. Sophia's victory had been featured in several educational publications, with mentions of her connection to the CEO of Mason Enterprises. The company's public relations director had already prepared a tasteful press release highlighting the firm's commitment to educational excellence and mentioning Sophia's achievement. The Harvard Business School Alumni Association requested you as a speaker for their fall conference, Denise reported, handing Amanda her schedule for the day. And MIT's president called personally about Sophia. They're creating a special research position for her next summer. Amanda nodded, processing the information while opening her laptop. As had become her habit over the years, she spent 15 minutes each morning updating her digital archive on Richard Blackwell. This morning's search yielded a recent article in the Wall Street Journal, profiling Blackwell Industries' acquisition of a streaming media platform. The accompanying photograph showed Richard at a press conference, confident and commanding at the podium. Amanda studied his face dispassionately, noting the new lines around his eyes, the slightly fuller cheeks, the calculated charm in his smile that had once seemed so genuine to her. She added the article to a meticulously organized folder labeled Chicago, password protected and hidden within layers of encrypted business files. The folder contained every article, photograph, and mention of Richard she had collected over 15 years. Not for emotional reasons, she told herself, but as documentation of a history that might someday need verification. Amanda was closing the folder when her office door opened after a quick knock. Sophia entered, already dressed for her advanced physics class at Boston University, where she was taking college-level courses alongside her regular high school curriculum. Mom, I need to talk to you about something, Sophia said, closing the door behind her. Amanda quickly closed the laptop. Of course, sweetheart. Is everything okay with your classes? Classes are fine, Sophia replied, her analytical gaze taking in the hastily closed laptop. But I've been wondering about something. Why do you keep so much information about media companies, specifically about Blackwell Industries? Amanda felt a momentary chill. It's competitive research. Many media conglomerates use our services. Sophia tilted her head slightly, an unconscious gesture so reminiscent of Richard that Amanda felt a physical jolt of recognition. We have research departments for that. This seems personal. For a moment, Amanda considered deflection, but Sophia's penetrating gaze, so like her father's when he was dissecting a financial report, made prevarication seem futile. Sit down, Amanda said softly. There are some things about our past that we should discuss. Over the next 30 minutes, Amanda shared a carefully edited version of her history with Richard. She described their whirlwind romance and marriage, his career ambitions, and his ultimate decision to prioritize professional advancement over family life. Your father wasn't a bad person, Amanda concluded, choosing her words with precision. He simply wasn't ready for the responsibility of parenthood. He chose a career path instead of family. In the end, it was better for both of us to make a clean break. Sophia absorbed the information with characteristic composure, asking occasional clarifying questions with the detachment of a scientist examining an interesting specimen. Was there ever any further contact after he left? No, Amanda answered truthfully. He made his choice very clear. Statistically speaking, 87% of absent fathers attempt to make contact at some point, Sophia observed, particularly when their financial circumstances improve or they achieve other life milestones. He never tried? Not once, Amanda confirmed, watching her daughter carefully. Sophia nodded, seeming to file this information away in her methodically organized mind. Thank you for telling me. I've wondered but didn't want to cause you pain by asking. That evening they shared a quiet dinner at home, Sophia unusually reflective as she picked at her food. Mom, she said finally, would you say that your business success was partly motivated by proving him wrong? The question caught Amanda off guard with its directness. Initially, perhaps, she admitted after a moment's consideration. The need to survive was the primary driver, but yes, there was an element of determination to disprove his assessment of my capabilities. His loss, Sophia said simply, returning to her meal. 3 weeks later, an elegant envelope arrived addressed to Sophia, bearing the Stanford University seal. Inside was a personal letter from the university's president, inviting her to join a highly selective summer research program for exceptional young scientists. Only 12 students nationwide are invited each year, Sophia explained, her normally composed expression betraying excitement as she showed Amanda the letter. The program director specifically mentioned my work on non-Euclidean geometry applications. This is extraordinary, Amanda said, scanning the prestigious names on the committee that had selected her daughter. Stanford is across the country, though. Are you comfortable being that far from home? It's only for 6 weeks, Sophia replied pragmatically. And statistically speaking, commercial air travel is the safest form of transportation. Amanda smiled at the characteristic response. Then we should celebrate. Where would you like to go for dinner? As they were preparing to leave for the restaurant, Amanda received a call from Sophia's principal, requesting a meeting the following morning. Something in his tone suggested urgency beneath the professional courtesy. The meeting revealed what Amanda had long suspected but hadn't fully acknowledged. Sophia's intelligence placed her in a category beyond conventional educational classifications. Mrs. Mason, Dr. Williams began, reviewing a folder thick with test results and teacher evaluations, your daughter's cognitive assessments are literally off the charts. Her mathematics ability tests at the top percentile for graduate-level students. Amanda nodded. She had watched Sophia solve differential equations at 11, devour advanced physics texts at 12. What's your recommendation? She asked, already anticipating the answer. Frankly, conventional high school is wasting her time, even with the college courses she's currently taking, Dr. Williams explained. We've consulted with specialists in gifted education. They recommend full-time early admission to a university program with appropriate intellectual challenges. The following weeks brought a flurry of meetings with educational consultants, university admissions officers, and cognitive specialists, all marveling at Sophia's extraordinary abilities. Your daughter combines analytical brilliance with remarkable emotional intelligence, observed Dr. Chen, the head of MIT's special programs for exceptional students. That combination is exceedingly rare. Most prodigies struggle with social development, but Sophia navigates both worlds with unusual grace. She's had to be resilient, Amanda replied, thinking of the circumstances that had shaped her daughter's early years. Later that same week, Amanda attended a Boston Business Leaders Gala, now a regular invitee to such prestigious functions. The evening's keynote speaker, the CEO of a major technology firm, sought her out afterward. Ms. Mason, your reputation precedes you, he said, extending his hand. Your company's approach to integrated security systems is revolutionizing the industry. We've found that comprehensive solutions are more effective than fragmented services, Amanda replied, accepting the compliment with practiced ease. As the conversation continued, Amanda noted how different this interaction was from her early days of business development. The respect in the CEO's tone, the absence of condescension, the genuine interest in her insights. She had become not just accepted in these circles but sought after, her opinion valued, her expertise recognized. Returning to her office after the gala, Amanda found the latest issue of Fortune magazine on her desk. The cover featured Richard Blackwell standing beside Catherine Vanderbilt, the headline announcing their engagement. The accompanying article detailed the joining of media royalty and old money, with the wedding planned for the following spring at the Four Seasons in New York. Amanda studied the photograph dispassionately. Catherine Vanderbilt embodied old-world elegance, tall, aristocratic, with the confident bearing of someone who had never questioned her place in the world, the kind of woman Richard had always aspired to have on his arm. She placed the magazine in her digital scanner, adding the article to her archive before continuing with her evening work routine. What Amanda didn't know was that while she updated her files on Richard, Sophia was conducting her own investigation. In her bedroom, surrounded by advanced textbooks and the medals from various academic competitions, Sophia carefully extracted DNA results from a sealed envelope. The clinical report confirmed what she had suspected since finding the old hairbrush with the initials RB. Richard Blackwell was her biological father, with a paternity match of 99.9997%. Sophia filed the results in a secure folder on her computer, information to be deployed when the optimal strategic moment presented itself. While her mother had built an empire from determination and grit, Sophia had inherited not just Amanda's resilience but also Richard's calculating strategic mind. The combination made her formidable in ways neither parent could have fully anticipated. As she guarded the DNA results in her desk drawer, Sophia didn't imagine that in just 1 year she would be standing face to face with the man whose blood ran in her veins, in a confrontation that would forever change 3 lives. As she guarded the DNA results in her desk drawer, Sophia didn't imagine that in just 1 year she would be standing face to face with the man whose blood ran in her veins, in a confrontation that would forever change 3 lives. The Boston skyline glittered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Mason Enterprises executive boardroom. Amanda studied the holographic display hovering above the polished mahogany table, where a real-time map tracked the company's operations across 30 states. Blinking indicators represented 3,800 employees performing specialized services from coast to coast, a digital constellation representing the empire she had built from nothing but determination and $2,000. Q3 projections exceed targets by 17%, reported Charles Winters, her chief financial officer, scrolling through performance metrics on his tablet. The expansion into healthcare security protocols is particularly promising. Amanda nodded, absorbing the information while mentally calculating implications for their 5-year growth strategy. Success had become expected rather than surprising, yet she never took it for granted. Every achievement remained a quiet rebuttal to Richard's parting words, "You'll never be anything without me." "There's something else," interjected Mariana Lopez, head of acquisitions, her tone shifting subtly. "We've identified a potential acquisition target that presents unusual strategic advantages." Amanda raised an eyebrow. "Unusual how?" Mariana tapped her tablet, replacing the operations map with a corporate profile. "Blackwell Industries. They've been making questionable decisions lately, particularly their failed streaming platform launch. Stock has dropped 23% in 6 months." The room fell silent as executives exchanged glances, aware of the name's significance, though none knew the full history. Amanda maintained her professional composure, betraying no reaction to the company bearing her ex-husband's name suddenly appearing in her boardroom. "What's the strategic advantage?" she asked, her voice measured and calm. Charles cleared his throat. "Their digital security division has proprietary protocols that would integrate perfectly with our corporate services. Plus, their client list includes government contracts we've been pursuing for years. Amanda studied the projected financials dispassionately. This would be our largest acquisition to date. Walk me through the numbers. For the next hour, her team detailed how Blackwell Industries' vulnerabilities created a rare acquisition opportunity. The company had overextended with recent expansions, betting heavily on a streaming platform that failed to gain market traction. Their board was divided, with several members openly questioning Richard's leadership. "We could acquire controlling interest through multiple subsidiary holdings," explained Mariana. "Structured properly, the true buyer wouldn't be revealed until the transaction was complete." Amanda stood, walking to the windows overlooking Boston Harbor. The same waters that had once represented her fresh start now reflected the success that had surpassed even her ambitious visions. She could feel her team watching, awaiting her decision. "This has to be about business, not personal history," she said finally, turning back to face them. "The acquisition needs to make financial sense independently of any other considerations." Charles nodded firmly. "I've analyzed this from every angle. Even ignoring potential synergies, the fundamentals support acquisition. They're undervalued based on assets and intellectual property alone." "Proceed with preliminary structuring," Amanda decided, "but with absolute discretion. I want complete deniability until we're ready to move." Later that evening, Amanda sat alone in her office, a glass of rarely indulged Cabernet in hand, staring at recent photographs of Richard Blackwell displayed on her monitor. At 45, he retained the handsome features that had once captivated her, though new lines around his eyes suggested strain beneath the confident exterior. His wedding to Catherine Vanderbilt was scheduled for spring, a society event already generating buzz in exclusive circles. "Would you make the same choice today?" she murmured to his image, wondering if the empire he'd chosen over family had fulfilled whatever emptiness drove his ambition. Amanda's reflections were interrupted by a gentle knock. Sophia entered, still wearing her MIT visitor's badge from that afternoon's laboratory session. "Working late again?" Sophia asked, settling into the chair opposite Amanda's desk, her posture unconsciously mirroring her mother's. "Just reviewing some potential acquisitions," Amanda replied, discreetly closing the Blackwell Industries files. "How was the quantum computing demonstration?" "Promising but fundamentally flawed in their approach to entanglement maintenance," Sophia answered with characteristic precision. "Their error correction protocols are insufficient for sustained operations." Amanda smiled, still occasionally startled by her daughter's casual brilliance. At 14, Sophia spoke about cutting-edge physics with the authority of seasoned researchers, yet maintained the emotional openness that made her extraordinary beyond mere intelligence. "Mom," Sophia said after a pause, her tone shifting subtly, "I saw your browser history on our home network. You've been researching Blackwell Industries extensively." Amanda's smile faded. She had underestimated her daughter's technological awareness, a mistake she shouldn't have made given Sophia's demonstrated capabilities. "It's a potential acquisition target," she explained, deciding honesty was the simplest approach. Sophia's expression remained neutral, but her eyes, so like Richard's in their penetrating intensity, seemed to evaluate multiple dimensions of this information simultaneously. "Is it because he's my biological father?" The directness of the question momentarily startled Amanda. "No. It's a business decision based on strategic alignment and financial opportunity." "But you've been tracking him for years," Sophia observed. "I found the archive folder. It's impressively thorough." Amanda sighed, recognizing the futility of partial truths with someone who processed information as methodically as her daughter. "I've monitored his career, yes. Initially as a way to process what happened, later as... I'm not entirely sure. Habit, perhaps. Validation that I made something meaningful despite his predictions." Sophia nodded thoughtfully. "He is my biological father. I have a right to know who he is." "You do," Amanda acknowledged, "but knowing who he is biologically doesn't define who you are. You've become extraordinary through your own abilities and choices." A comfortable silence settled between them, filled with the unspoken understanding that had sustained their relationship through every challenge. Sophia eventually stood, gathering her backpack. "I have an advanced calculus assignment to complete," she said, moving toward the door before pausing. "For what it's worth, I think acquiring his company would be poetically appropriate, the ultimate refutation of his assessment of your capabilities." After Sophia left, Amanda returned to the acquisition proposal, reviewing projections with renewed focus. By midnight, she had made her decision. Mason Holdings, a subsidiary created specifically for investment purposes, would begin quietly purchasing Blackwell Industries stock through multiple channels, disguising the true buyer until they secured controlling interest. Over the next 3 months, the acquisition proceeded with surgical precision. Mason Holdings accumulated Blackwell Industries shares through pension funds, international holding companies, and private equity partnerships, each purchase small enough to avoid triggering disclosure requirements. Meanwhile, Richard remained unaware that his company was being systematically acquired by the woman he had once dismissed as mediocre and common. "Final authorization required," Mariana announced one crisp autumn morning, placing a leather portfolio on Amanda's desk. "With these purchases, Mason Holdings will control 51% of Blackwell Industries." Amanda reviewed the documents methodically, her signature authorizing the transfer of $87 million, the final tranche of a $320 million acquisition. With a single pen stroke, she became the majority owner of her ex-husband's corporate empire. "Notify their board of the change in ownership," she instructed, "but delay revealing Mason Enterprises as the parent company until the scheduled board meeting next month." "When will you tell him personally?" Mariana asked, unable to completely disguise her curiosity about the confrontation everyone anticipated. Amanda smiled slightly. "When the moment is right. These things require proper timing." That evening, Amanda's phone buzzed with a news alert. Media mogul Richard Blackwell announces Four Seasons wedding date with socialite Catherine Vanderbilt. The accompanying photograph showed the couple at a charity gala, Catherine's family heirloom diamond glittering prominently on her left hand. Almost simultaneously, an email arrived from Columbia University's Advanced Physics Department, inviting Sophia to tour their quantum research facilities during an upcoming weekend, coincidentally, the same weekend as Richard's wedding. Amanda stared at the two notifications side by side on her screen, an idea forming that felt almost predestined. "The universe has interesting timing," she murmured. The following morning, Amanda received a call from her New York operations vice president. "We've received a last-minute request for the Four Seasons this weekend," he explained. "A high-profile wedding needing premium preparation. The client will pay triple our standard rate for absolute discretion." Amanda rarely involved herself in operational details anymore, but the coincidence was too perfect to ignore. Sophia had already expressed excitement about visiting Columbia's laboratories that weekend. A mother-daughter trip to New York would allow Amanda to personally oversee this particular service while supporting her daughter's academic interests. "I'll handle this personally," she decided, already envisioning the inevitable encounter 15 years in the making. 3 days later, Amanda and Sophia checked into their suite at the Mandarin Oriental, offering panoramic views of Central Park. The luxurious accommodations reflected how far they had come from the women's shelter where they had once sought refuge. "My Columbia tour starts at 9 tomorrow morning," Sophia reminded her, unpacking her carefully organized suitcase. "Will you be done at the Four Seasons in time for dinner? I'd like to discuss their superconductive materials research." "I should be finished by 5, Amanda replied, reviewing the wedding preparation schedule on her tablet. "The Mason team has everything coordinated. I'm just doing final quality checks." What she didn't mention was that those quality checks would strategically coincide with Richard's pre-wedding activities, ensuring an encounter that couldn't be avoided or delegated. That night, Amanda stood at the window of their suite, gazing at the glittering Manhattan skyline. 15 years ago, Richard had abandoned her for this city, choosing its promise of power and prestige over the family they might have built together. Now she returned not as a desperate, discarded wife, but as the CEO of a $200 million enterprise that had just acquired controlling interest in his company. "Full circle," she whispered to the twinkling lights, feeling neither triumph nor vindication, but a quiet acknowledgement that justice sometimes arrived on its own schedule. As she prepared for bed, Amanda's phone chimed with a message from her assistant. "Confirmation received. Wedding party will be on site for final venue inspection at 11 tomorrow morning." She set the phone aside, a small smile playing at her lips. While Richard prepared to marry into one of America's oldest fortunes, blissfully unaware of the corporate takeover, Amanda mentally rehearsed what she would say when they inevitably came face to face. While preparing for sleep, Amanda didn't know that fate had orchestrated a reunion much more dramatic than she had planned, one that would expose truths kept hidden for 15 years on a stage far more public than she could have anticipated. While preparing for sleep, Amanda didn't know that fate had orchestrated a reunion much more dramatic than she had planned, one that would expose truths kept hidden for 15 years on a stage far more public than she could have anticipated. Morning light streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of their Mandarin Oriental suite, casting a golden glow across the immaculate space. Amanda and Sophia shared a rare moment of relaxation over breakfast, the usual whirlwind of business calls and academic schedules temporarily suspended. "Excited about the Columbia Laboratories?" Amanda asked, watching her daughter methodically butter her toast with the same precision she applied to complex equations. "Their quantum computing research is among the most advanced in the country," Sophia replied, eyes brightening with genuine enthusiasm. "Dr. Kapoor's work on decoherence suppression is particularly revolutionary." Amanda smiled, savoring this glimpse of typical teenage excitement beneath her daughter's composed exterior. "Text me when you're done. We'll have dinner somewhere special to celebrate your Stanford acceptance." They parted in the lobby, Sophia heading toward the waiting university car while Amanda slipped into the back of a sleek town car emblazoned with the discreet Mason Enterprises logo. As the vehicle navigated through Manhattan traffic, Amanda reviewed the wedding preparation checklist on her tablet. The Four Seasons contract was substantial: elite service level, 30 staff members, proprietary cleaning protocols for the historic ballroom. The car pulled up to the hotel's exclusive entrance, where the director of operations waited to greet her personally. "Ms. Mason, what an honor," he effused, extending his hand. "We rarely have CEOs personally overseeing services." "Special circumstances," Amanda replied smoothly, adjusting the lapel of her tailored Chanel suit, a far cry from the clearance rack clothes she'd once worn to clean offices in the middle of the night. "This client deserves our utmost attention." Inside, the ballroom buzzed with coordinated activity. Mason Enterprises staff in their signature charcoal uniforms meticulously prepared the space for what society columns had dubbed the wedding of the year. Crystal chandeliers were being cleaned prism by prism, specialized equipment sanitized surfaces without disturbing delicate decorations. "Status report?" Amanda asked her New York operations manager, who appeared instantly at her side. "On schedule and exceeding specifications," he replied crisply. "The client has been exacting in their requirements." "The bride or groom?" Amanda inquired, knowing the answer already. "The groom primarily, quite particular about every detail." Amanda nodded, a faint smile playing at her lips. Some things never changed. For the next hour, she circulated through the space, inspecting work with the same meticulous attention that had built her company's reputation. Her employees straightened imperceptibly in her presence, aware of the exacting standards that had transformed a one-woman cleaning service into an industry-redefining enterprise. She was reviewing the placement of service stations when a ripple of awareness passed through the room. The wedding party had arrived for their final inspection. Amanda positioned herself partially behind an elaborate floral arrangement, heart rate accelerating despite her carefully maintained composure. Through a forest of white orchids and crystalline branches, she caught her first in-person glimpse of Richard Blackwell in 15 years. He stood at the entrance, tall and imposing in a perfectly tailored suit, directing a photographer while gesturing emphatically about lighting angles. Beside him stood Catherine Vanderbilt, willowy and elegant, observing the proceedings with aristocratic detachment. Amanda observed Richard carefully, noting the changes 15 years had wrought. His dark hair now showed distinguished silver at the temples. Fine lines had formed around his eyes. He carried himself with the absolute confidence of someone accustomed to power, gesturing authoritatively as staff rushed to accommodate his requests. Memories cascaded unbidden, Richard tossing divorce papers and $2,000 onto their kitchen table, his cold voice declaring she would never survive without him, the crushing weight of abandonment as she sat alone in a women's shelter, infant Sophia sleeping against her chest. Amanda took a steadying breath, smoothing her already perfect hair with practiced composure. This encounter required precision timing, neither contrived nor easily avoided. A staff member approached with a clipboard. "Ms. Mason, we need your approval for the VIP table positioning." The interruption broke her reverie. "Of course," Amanda replied, following the employee to the center of the ballroom where diagrams were laid out for review. From the corner of her eye, she monitored Richard's progress through the room, mentally calculating trajectories and timing. He moved with purpose, examining details with critical intensity, occasionally issuing corrections to trembling hotel staff. "Mr. Blackwell seems nervous about the decorations," the assistant wedding planner whispered to another staff member nearby. "He's micromanaging everything down to the fold of the napkins." Amanda almost smiled. The Richard she had known could never relinquish control, viewing any imperfection as a personal failure. Some aspects of character remained immutable despite external success. The inevitable collision of past and present occurred while Amanda inspected the cocktail reception area. She had deliberately positioned herself where Richard would eventually need to approve glass arrangements. When he turned the corner with the catering director, the recognition that crossed his face unfolded in stages: confusion, disbelief, shock, and finally, a pallor that suggested genuine physical distress. "Amanda?" His voice faltered, barely audible. She turned with practiced casualness, as though noticing him for the first time. "Mr. Blackwell," she acknowledged with professional courtesy, her voice steady despite the emotional turbulence beneath. "Mason Enterprises is ensuring your special day will be impeccable." Richard glanced frantically around the room, verifying if anyone was witnessing their interaction. Catherine remained across the ballroom, deep in conversation with the florist. "You work for the cleaning company?" he asked, struggling to process her presence while simultaneously attempting to reassert his psychological advantage. Amanda allowed herself a small, measured smile. "Actually, I'm the founder and CEO of Mason Enterprises. I suppose I should thank you for your unique motivation 15 years ago." Richard's expression cycled through several emotions, shock giving way to disbelief, followed by something that resembled fear. The power dynamic he had established when abandoning her had inverted completely, leaving him visibly destabilized. "Your name has appeared in some business publications," he muttered, adjusting his tie in a nervous gesture she remembered from their marriage. "I never imagined—" "Clearly," Amanda replied evenly. "If you'll excuse me, we have a rigorous schedule to maintain." Before Richard could respond, Sophia approached from across the ballroom, tablet in hand. Amanda felt a momentary panic. This wasn't how she had planned their first encounter. Sophia was supposed to be at Columbia for another 3 hours. "Mom, I was researching Mr. Blackwell to better understand our client, and I found something strange on the hotel server," Sophia said, her intelligent eyes taking in the palpable tension between the adults. Amanda forced herself to remain composed. "Sophia, this is Mr. Blackwell, the groom. Mr. Blackwell, my daughter, Sophia." Richard froze, staring at the teenager who unmistakably carried his features. The same penetrating eyes, the same distinctive jawline, the same analytical intensity in her gaze. Understanding dawned with visible pain across his expression. "Your daughter?" he stammered, complexion paling further. Sophia, seemingly oblivious to the emotional undercurrents, continued with characteristic focus. "Mom, Mr. Blackwell's laptop is connected to the hotel network, and when I ran a standard security scan, I found a folder labeled Chicago with dozens of photos of you from years ago. Why would he have that?" The silence that followed was deafening. Amanda felt suspended in time, watching as 15 years of carefully maintained narratives threatened to collapse. Richard's eyes darted between mother and daughter, desperation mounting as he recognized the precipice before him. Catherine Vanderbilt approached, sensing the unusual interaction. Her aristocratic features arranged themselves into a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Richard, is everything all right? Who are these people?" she asked, her refined voice carrying subtle notes of concern. The moment of truth had arrived without any planning or preparation. Amanda saw the opportunity fate had delivered, not for petty revenge, but for long-delayed justice. She turned to Catherine with professional courtesy. "Mrs. Vanderbilt, I'm Amanda Mason, CEO of Mason Enterprises, and this is my daughter, Sophia." Amanda paused, weighing the consequences of her next words. Richard's daughter. The ballroom seemed to hold its collective breath. Staff members froze in their tasks. Catherine's perfect composure fractured momentarily as she looked from Richard to Sophia, the unmistakable genetic connection impossible to deny. "What is she talking about, Richard?" Catherine demanded, her cultivated voice now edged with steel. Richard attempted to regain control of the spiraling situation. "Is this some kind of extortion scheme? Now that I'm successful, you appear with this story?" Amanda laughed, a genuine sound of amusement that disconcerted everyone present. "Richard, my company grossed $78 million last fiscal year. I don't need your money." She turned to Catherine. "What he's not telling you is that he abandoned me pregnant in Chicago, saying I would never be anything without him and that a child would interfere with his meteoric career." Catherine's parents approached, drawn by the growing tension. William Vanderbilt III, chairman of one of the nation's oldest investment banks, assessed the situation with the practiced eye of someone accustomed to managing crises. "Blackwell, what exactly is happening here?" he inquired, his patrician voice deceptively mild. Richard made one final desperate attempt to salvage the situation. "There's no proof that this child is mine. This is clearly an attempt to—" "Actually," Sophia interrupted, her calm, analytical tone cutting through his bluster, "I conducted a DNA test 3 years ago using a hair sample from a brush my mother kept. Confirmation of 99.9997% paternity, legally documented and registered. I didn't know who you were until today, but I've always known you existed." Richard's face drained of all remaining color. Catherine deliberately removed her engagement ring, the 10-carat diamond catching the light as she placed it firmly in Richard's palm. "Cancelled," she declared with quiet finality, turning to leave with her parents. In that moment, the hotel's head of security approached with an envelope. "Mrs. Mason, the confidential document you requested is here, as scheduled." Amanda thanked him and turned to Richard, extending the envelope. "This might interest you. Last week, Mason Holdings, our investment subsidiary, acquired 51% of Blackwell Industries shares. Your board was quite dissatisfied with some recent decisions and accepted our offer." Richard's hands trembled violently as he opened the envelope, confirming the unthinkable. "You bought my company?" "Ironic, isn't it?" Amanda observed with calm detachment. "You said I would never be anything without you, but it turns out you're the one who became insignificant without the heart you discarded." While Richard stood paralyzed by the cascading revelations, Sophia studied him with the clinical interest of a scientist observing an unexpected experimental result. In the elegant ballroom where he had planned to cement his social ascension, Richard Blackwell watched helplessly as the empire he had sacrificed everything to build crumbled beneath the weight of truth 15 years in the making. While Richard stood paralyzed by the cascading revelations, Sophia studied him with the clinical interest of a scientist observing an unexpected experimental result. In the elegant ballroom where he had planned to cement his social ascension, Richard Blackwell watched helplessly as the empire he had sacrificed everything to build crumbled beneath the weight of truth 15 years in the making. The following morning, headlines screamed across New York's social pages and business sections alike. Media mogul's wedding canceled amid shocking paternity revelation. The accompanying photographs captured Catherine Vanderbilt's glacial exit from the Four Seasons, her parents flanking her protectively while Richard stood abandoned in the background, face ashen with disbelief. Amanda sat in the hotel restaurant, methodically spreading jam on her toast while reviewing the morning's coverage on her tablet. She had neither sought nor prevented the media storm. Truth, once unleashed, followed its own momentum. "Did you anticipate this level of coverage?" Sophia asked, analyzing the situation with her characteristic detachment while calculating differential equations in the margins of her notebook, a habit that helped her process emotional complexity. "The Vanderbilt name guarantees attention," Amanda replied evenly. "How are you feeling about everything?" Sophia considered the question with the same precision she applied to mathematical theorems. "Curious, primarily. Also vindicated that my genetic analysis was correct. His phenotypical markers matched my predictions exactly." Amanda smiled faintly at her daughter's unique perspective. Before she could respond, her phone buzzed with a text from the hotel concierge. Richard Blackwell was requesting to speak with them in the lobby. "He's here," Amanda said simply. Sophia closed her notebook. "I calculated an 87% probability he would attempt contact within 24 hours. Would you prefer I not meet with him?" "That's entirely your choice," Amanda replied. "He is your biological father." "Then I'll give him 15 minutes, Sophia decided, her tone businesslike, "in the lobby where it's public." They found Richard waiting near the fountain, dressed impeccably as always but with visible signs of a sleepless night etched into his face. The confident media titan had been replaced by a man visibly shaken by the collapse of his carefully constructed world. "Thank you for agreeing to speak with me," he began, his voice lacking its usual commanding resonance. Sophia studied him with analytical intensity. 15 minutes, Mr. Blackwell. I have laboratory observations scheduled at Columbia at 11. Richard flinched slightly at her formality. "I've been awake all night, trying to process everything. I never knew." "That's mathematically improbable," Sophia interrupted, her tone factual rather than accusatory. "You abandoned my mother knowing she was pregnant. The logical conclusion would be that a child existed." "I wasn't thinking clearly then," Richard admitted, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "I was young, ambitious, frightened of responsibility." "You were 29. Sophia corrected precisely. Well within normal parameters for accepting parental responsibility. Richard turned to Amanda, desperation evident in his eyes. "I know I have no right to ask anything, but please, can we discuss this privately?" "There's nothing private to discuss," Amanda replied calmly. "The facts are straightforward. You made your choice 15 years ago. We've made our lives accordingly." "I can make up for lost time," Richard insisted, leaning forward earnestly. "I have resources, connections. I can ensure Sophia's future, the best schools, introductions to the right people." Sophia raised an eyebrow. "I've already been accepted to Stanford's Advanced Research Program and MIT's Early Admission track. My academic future is secure without your intervention." "It's not just about education," Richard persisted. "I can be part of your life now. We can build a relationship. I've missed 14 years, but 15, corrected Sophia, and your sudden interest correlates suspiciously with discovering my academic achievements and my mother's acquisition of your company. Statistical analysis suggests opportunism rather than genuine paternal concern." Richard flushed. "It's not like that. I just never knew you were so exceptional," Amanda supplied. "She always was. You simply weren't interested in discovering that." "I've made mistakes," Richard acknowledged, his voice dropping. "Terrible ones, but I'm asking for a chance to make amends." Sophia regarded him with the same detached curiosity she might apply to an interesting but flawed hypothesis. "Mr. Blackwell, I've had a lifetime to consider what a father might mean to me. What I've concluded is that a father is someone who remains present through difficulties, who prioritizes his child's well-being above personal ambition, who demonstrates consistent ethical behavior that serves as a model for development." She paused, closing her notebook with methodical precision. "Based on observable evidence, you possess none of these qualities. Your sudden interest appears predicated on discovering I'm intelligent enough to reflect well on you socially, or because my mother now controls your company. Neither motivation interests me." Richard's face contorted with genuine pain. "That's not fair. I didn't know—" "That is precisely my point," Sophia interrupted. "You chose not to know. That choice defined your priorities with absolute clarity." She stood, gathering her materials. "My 15 minutes are concluded. I have research to attend to." As Sophia walked away, Richard turned desperately to Amanda. "She hates me." "No," Amanda corrected. "That would require emotional investment. She simply evaluated you based on empirical evidence and found you irrelevant to her life. There's a difference." Richard slumped in his chair, the full weight of consequences finally settling on his shoulders. "What happens now? With the company? Will you fire me? Destroy everything I've built?" Amanda regarded him with the calm certainty that 15 years of self-reliance had forged. "Richard, you fundamentally misunderstood the situation. I didn't acquire Blackwell Industries for revenge. It was a strategic investment. Your company has technology that complements our service portfolio. It's business, not personal." "And my role in the company?" "The board will vote next week. Your continued employment depends exclusively on your professional performance." Amanda adjusted her portfolio. "Unlike you, I don't mix business decisions with personal matters." She stood to leave, then paused. "For what it's worth, the man I married 15 years ago had genuine potential beneath the ambition. Perhaps losing everything will help you rediscover what truly matters." In the weeks that followed, the ripple effects of the Four Seasons confrontation expanded through both personal and professional spheres. Catherine Vanderbilt issued a terse statement through her family's publicist, confirming the engagement's termination and requesting privacy. Society columnists speculated endlessly about the dramatic cancellation, with anonymous sources describing Catherine as devastated by the betrayal and blindsided by the revelations. Richard's professional standing, already compromised by recent business missteps, suffered another significant blow when the Blackwell Industries board convened their emergency meeting. The minutes, later leaked to business publications, revealed a stark assessment of leadership failures culminating in a vote of no confidence. While Mr. Blackwell's vision established the company's foundation, the statement read, the board believes fresh leadership is required to navigate current market challenges. Mr. Blackwell will transition to a consulting role, focusing on content strategy rather than operational management. Amanda watched these developments with professional detachment, neither accelerating nor impeding the natural consequences of Richard's actions. When the board requested her input on restructuring, she provided measured, business-focused recommendations without reference to personal history. Meanwhile, Amanda's own professional standing underwent a remarkable evolution. What might have been a potential scandal, a CEO confronting her ex-husband at his wedding, instead transformed into a compelling narrative of resilience that captured public imagination. From abandoned pregnant wife to corporate powerhouse, the Amanda Mason story read the headline of a major business magazine, requesting an exclusive interview. Invitations for speaking engagements flooded her office. 3 publishers submitted competing offers for her memoir. Amanda declined most opportunities, maintaining her characteristic privacy while focusing on integrating Blackwell Industries' technology into Mason Enterprises' service portfolio. The acquisition, initially viewed with skepticism by market analysts, proved strategically sound as share values increased 17% within the first quarter. Sophia, ever practical, used the unexpected publicity to advance her academic agenda. When Stanford's president called personally to confirm her research placement, she negotiated additional laboratory access and research funding with the confidence of someone twice her age. "Your daughter is remarkably self-possessed," observed Dr. Harrington, MIT's Dean of Admissions, during a campus tour. "Most students with her exceptional abilities struggle with social dynamics, but she navigates complex situations with unusual grace." "She's had practice," Amanda replied simply. By summer, the media frenzy had largely subsided, replaced by substantive recognition of Mason Enterprises' innovative business model. The Harvard Business Review published a case study analyzing how Amanda had transformed a simple cleaning service into a multifaceted security and facility management powerhouse, citing her methodical approach to identifying underserved market niches. 6 months after the confrontation, Amanda entered an upscale Boston restaurant for a business dinner with potential clients. She was checking messages on her phone when she noticed Richard seated alone at the bar, nursing a whiskey while staring vacantly at the television above the counter. He had visibly aged in the half-year since their encounter. Hair grayer, shoulders slightly stooped, designer suit hanging somewhat loosely on his frame. Their eyes met briefly across the room. After a moment's hesitation, Richard approached her table. "I heard Sophia was accepted to MIT," he said quietly. "Full scholarship and early admission. Youngest student in their physics program." Amanda nodded. "She starts in January." Richard's gaze drifted to the window, where Boston's skyline glittered against the evening sky. "I can't help thinking about what I missed. She's extraordinary." "Yes, she is," Amanda agreed. "And she is that way not because of your absence or despite it, but because I chose to transform our pain into strength. I chose to show her that value doesn't come from external validation, but from what we build for ourselves." Richard hesitated, vulnerability momentarily replacing his habitual confidence. "Do you think she'll ever forgive me?" Amanda considered the question carefully. "I don't know. Forgiveness isn't something you can demand or deserve. It's a gift that can only be freely offered." "And you?" Richard looked directly into her eyes. "Do you forgive me?" Amanda smiled, not with anger or triumph, but with the serenity of someone who had finally achieved true liberation. "Richard, I haven't needed to forgive you for a very long time. The moment I decided your words wouldn't define my worth, I was already free of you. What you think or feel simply isn't relevant to my story anymore." She stood, leaving a contemplative Richard to consider the emptiness of his past choices as she walked toward the exit, a woman who had transformed the cruelest abandonment into her most extraordinary triumph. She stood, leaving a contemplative Richard to consider the emptiness of his past choices as she walked toward the exit, a woman who had transformed the cruelest abandonment into her most extraordinary triumph. News of the dramatic confrontation at the Four Seasons spread through New York's social circles with the velocity of a digital wildfire. By morning, tabloids featured grainy photographs of Catherine Vanderbilt's hasty departure, her family's security detail forming a protective barrier against shouted questions from waiting paparazzi. The business press, initially more restrained, soon followed with analyses of the corporate implications, their headlines alternating between salacious and speculative. "Magnate of media abandoned daughter prodigy, now she's his boss," screamed the New York Post, while the Wall Street Journal opted for the more measured "Mason Enterprises acquisition reveals unexpected personal connection to Blackwell Industries." Amanda observed the media frenzy with detached interest over breakfast in their hotel suite. Carefully spreading marmalade on her toast, She reviewed the coverage on her tablet while Sophia methodically organized her notes for the day's laboratory visit at Columbia. The statistical probability of maintaining privacy after yesterday's events was approximately 0.3%, Sophia noted, glancing at the headlines. Though the focus on your acquisition rather than my paternity is analytically preferable. Amanda smiled at her daughter's characteristic perspective. How are you feeling about everything that happened? Before Sophia could respond, Amanda's phone signaled an incoming message from the hotel concierge. Richard Blackwell was in the lobby, requesting to speak with them. He had been waiting for 45 minutes. Interesting, Sophia observed. His persistence suggests either genuine remorse or strategic calculation of potential advantages in maintaining contact. Which do you think it is? Amanda asked, curious about her daughter's assessment. Insufficient data for conclusive analysis, Sophia replied pragmatically. Direct observation will provide additional variables for consideration. They found Richard seated in a secluded corner of the elegant lobby, his expensive suit wrinkled from what appeared to be a sleepless night. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his normally immaculate hair showed signs of distracted finger combing. When he spotted them approaching, he stood with uncharacteristic awkwardness. "Thank you for coming down," he said, voice hoarse with fatigue. "I realize I have no right to ask for your time." 15 minutes, Sophia stated, checking her watch with scientific precision. "I have an appointment at Columbia's quantum research facility at 11. Richard's gaze lingered on his daughter's face, cataloging the features that mirrored his own. The analytical intensity in her eyes, the determined set of her jaw, the methodical way she arranged herself in the chair, all reflections he recognized from his own mirror. "I've spent the entire night thinking about everything," he began, attempting to marshal his thoughts. "About what I did, what I missed, what might have been different if I'd made another choice 15 years ago." Amanda remained silent, allowing the weight of his words to fill the space between them. This conversation belonged primarily to Sophia now. "Regret is an inefficient emotional investment," Sophia observed clinically. "The past exists as fixed data points. Only future behaviors can be modified." Richard blinked, clearly unprepared for his daughter's pragmatic worldview. "I want to be part of your life," he said directly. "I can compensate for the lost years. I have resources, connections. I can open doors that would otherwise remain closed." "Your assessment presumes those doors remain closed to me currently," Sophia replied. "That's factually incorrect. I've already received early acceptance to MIT's Advanced Physics program and Stanford's Summer Research Institute. My academic trajectory is securely established without your intervention." "It's not just about academics," Richard persisted. "I want to know you, who you are, what you love, what makes you laugh. I've missed 14 years of your life." 15, Sophia corrected automatically. "And your sudden interest correlates precisely with learning of my academic achievements and my mother's acquisition of your company. The timing suggests opportunism rather than genuine paternal concern." Richard flushed, his complexion darkening with a mixture of shame and frustration. "That's not fair. I didn't know." "That is precisely the point," Sophia interrupted, her voice remaining measured despite the emotional undercurrent. "You chose not to know. That choice defined your priorities with absolute clarity." She stood, gathering her notebook with meticulous precision. "My 15 minutes are concluded. I have research waiting." As Sophia walked toward the hotel entrance, Richard turned to Amanda, desperation evident in his expression. "She hates me." "No," Amanda corrected gently. "That would require emotional investment. She simply evaluated you based on observable evidence and found you irrelevant to her life. There's a difference." Richard slumped in his chair, the armor of arrogance he had worn for decades finally cracking completely. "What happens now?" he asked, voice barely audible. "With the company? With us? Will you fire me? Destroy everything I've built?" Amanda studied the man before her, so different from the ambitious analyst who had once declared she would never survive without him. "Richard, you've fundamentally misunderstood the situation. I didn't acquire Blackwell Industries for revenge. It was a strategic investment. Your company has technology that complements our service portfolio. It's business, not personal." "And my role in the company?" he asked, tension visible in his shoulders. "The board will vote next week. Your continued employment depends exclusively on your professional performance." Amanda adjusted her portfolio, preparing to leave. "Unlike you, I don't mix business decisions with personal matters." In the months that followed, the scandal gradually faded from headlines, replaced by more current controversies among the wealthy and powerful. Catherine Vanderbilt retreated to her family's estate in the Hamptons, issuing a single dignified statement through her publicist that confirmed the engagement's termination while requesting privacy during this challenging personal time. The professional consequences for Richard proved more enduring. The Blackwell Industries board, already concerned about recent strategic missteps, used the public relations crisis as leverage to recommend his transition to a non-executive role. The carefully worded press release described his new position as strategic consultant, effectively removing him from daily operational control while maintaining the appearance of continuity. Amanda neither accelerated nor impeded these corporate developments, approaching the integration of Blackwell Industries with the same methodical precision that characterized all her business decisions. When consulted by the board regarding restructuring, she provided substantive, forward-looking recommendations without reference to personal history. The revelation of Amanda's extraordinary journey from abandoned pregnant wife to corporate leader transformed what might have been scandal into an inspiring narrative of resilience. Invitations for interviews and speaking engagements flooded her office. 3 publishers submitted competing offers for her memoir. "You've become something of a folk hero," observed her public relations director, presenting a folder of media requests. "Especially among professional women. The story resonates deeply: triumph over betrayal, success against impossible odds." Amanda declined most opportunities, prioritizing Sophia's well-being and the integration of their newest acquisition. The few interviews she granted focused on business strategy rather than personal history, though she recognized that her journey had value beyond corporate lessons. "Success wasn't built on bitterness," she told Harvard Business Review in a rare personal reflection. "It was built on the determination to create something meaningful despite obstacles. The focus was never on proving him wrong, but on proving myself right." Sophia, characteristically, leveraged the unexpected attention to advance her academic agenda. When Stanford's president called personally to confirm her research placement, she negotiated additional laboratory access and research funding with the calm authority of a seasoned professional. "Most prodigies I've encountered lack social intelligence," the university president later commented to Amanda. "Your daughter combines remarkable analytical abilities with exceptional emotional maturity. That's an exceedingly rare combination." "She's had to be resilient," Amanda replied simply. By summer, Mason Enterprises had completed the initial integration of Blackwell Industries technology into their service portfolio. The market responded positively, with share values increasing 17% in the first quarter following acquisition. What financial analysts had initially questioned as a potentially emotional decision was now recognized as strategically brilliant. 6 months after the Four Seasons confrontation, Amanda entered an upscale Boston restaurant for a business dinner with potential clients. While checking messages on her phone, she noticed Richard seated alone at the bar, nursing a whiskey while staring vacantly at the television. The physical transformation was striking: his hair noticeably grayer, shoulders slightly stooped, designer suit hanging loosely on a frame that had lost weight. Their eyes met across the room, mutual recognition immediate. After a moment's hesitation, Richard approached her table. "I heard about Sophia's MIT acceptance," he said quietly. "Full scholarship and early admission. Youngest student in their physics program." Amanda nodded. "She starts in January." Richard's gaze drifted toward the window, where Boston's skyline glittered against the night sky. I can't help thinking about what I missed. She's extraordinary. Yes, she is, Amanda agreed, her voice softening slightly. And she became that way not because of your absence or despite it, but because I chose to transform our pain into strength. I chose to show her that value doesn't come from external validation, but from what we build for ourselves. Richard shifted uncomfortably, vulnerability replacing his habitual confidence. Do you think she'll ever forgive me? Amanda considered the question carefully. I don't know. Forgiveness isn't something you can demand or deserve. It's a gift that can only be freely offered. And you? Richard looked directly into her eyes. Do you forgive me? Amanda smiled, not with anger or triumph, but with the serenity of someone who had finally achieved true liberation. Richard, I haven't needed to forgive you for a very long time. The moment I decided your words wouldn't define my worth, I was already free of you. What you think or feel simply isn't relevant to my story anymore. She stood, gathering her belongings as her dinner companions approached from the restaurant entrance. Richard remained at the table, watching as she greeted the executives with confident warmth. On the sidewalk outside, Sophia waited with a three-dimensional model of the solar system she had created for a demonstration at the local science museum. Ready for our weekend in Cape Cod, Mom? Amanda embraced her daughter, the true legacy of her journey. Absolutely. We have a whole world ahead of us. As they walked toward the waiting car, Amanda didn't look back. There was no need. Her story wasn't defined by the man left behind, but by the brilliant future she had created from the fragments of a broken heart 15 years before. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time. Just click on the screen.